6 p.m. Thank you for joining
Well,
us.
sometimes it's from 4 to 5:36.
You were kind of falling out, as they say on Saturday.
Oh man, I was falling asleep.
So we ended the show early at 5:30, but we're back.
We are.
We're back. We had a interesting weekend. After my discovery of a new show on HBO, we're three episodes into it.
There was a lot of shit in the office that was going on this weekend too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you know, to make everybody think we were sitting in front of a TV set watching TV all weekend, that didn't happen.
Well, we have like 5 TVs here at the office.
We do.
Okay. So we worked on our response to the town of Coventry's motion for summary judgment against Joe Kaminsky. As many of you know, Joe Kaminsky is a gentleman who in 2011, at his small lakeside cottage in Coventry, Connecticut, was greeted by, I count 6 officers who arrived at his door, led by now retired Detective Barbara Matson, who went over there in a flash without getting a warrant. And
it was downhill all the way.
Yeah, and they took all his guns because he was a felon. Problem is, he wasn't a felon. He had an FFL license. He had a pistol permit. He had a license to sell pistols and revolvers from his local town for about 40 or 50 years. And they found some conviction back in 1964, and they interpreted it as a felony, and it was not a felony. And if they would have taken the time to get a warrant, done some research, taken it to a prosecutor, the whole thing probably could have been averted. But, you know, I read on Saturday night a dissent by Justice Gorsuch in a 10th Circuit case when he was still an appellate court judge, and he addressed this whole knock and talk phenomenon where police do not get warrants anymore. They just come to your house to talk to you, to get your consent, supposedly, for them to enter the house, and then things go downhill from there. You're right. And I said to Ed on Saturday, we should stop this practice, because if people are really consenting, and by the way, I don't think people are really consenting. When you think about the word consent, when 5 police officers come to your home and stand there in front of you and threaten you with arrest because you're a felon and you have guns in your house, well, you may not be a felon. In Joe Kaminsky's case, he wasn't. Is that really consent to let them in? And if it is, then what a joke, you know, the definition of consent is in our courts right now. Consent, there should be a requirement that before police come to your house, if they want to get your consent to come in, they should go by the standards of the community and be courteous and give you a call first. Who just pops up at people's door anymore? I mean, maybe in the Leave It to Beaver days in the 1950s, neighbors used to pop over and people used to pop over at people's doors, but they don't do so anymore. People give a call. We have cell phones now. Common courtesy. Cops, if they want to get your consent and they don't have a warrant, they should be required to call your house first.
I have something to say about this. Barbara Matson testified under oath in a deposition that she very rarely has to get a warrant. She just goes and knocks on the door, and she's always been let in. Always.
15 years.
And Gorsuch, in his argument, says this phenomenon, you know, that oh yeah, everybody was let in. Now, here is the true test. And this is the way I would do it, but I'm not a lawyer. To the Second Circuit or to a district court judge, Your Honor, take the same 6 people dressed as they were, and I want them to go up to your front door and ask to come into your house and look around. And I want to know what you are going to say to them. In other words, because you know the law, you're not going to let them in. And you're not afraid to tell them you're not letting them in because you're a judge. Now, how many people permit Jehovah's Witnesses to come into their home?
The cops get into your house because they're cops and they have the authority that you're scared of. If it were just 5 regular people showing up at your house, asking if they could come in and look around, what would you say?
Who the fuck are you?
Right.
Now.
And they have this myth that these cops have the same license to come to your front door as any visitor. Okay, well, maybe true. You know, because if you're on the street, a cop has every right to come up to you and talk to you. Now, you don't have to talk back, just like you don't have to talk back to anybody else, but he's not violating your rights just by coming up and saying, hi, what's going on, how you doing? But when they come to your door at your house, it is not the same as just a regular person coming to your door to your house.
Now, let's
but case law makes it seem like it is.
Let's keep going. An assistant or deputy police chief in Waterbury is sort of grooming the residents to say, when they come, do what they say, let them in, and then take it up later. Now, you've already said, and I'm sure you'll say again, based on the minute you permit them to come in, they're going to use the knock and talk rule that they were invited in, that you waived your 4th Amendment, 5th Amendment rights.
Absolutely. It's like telling somebody when they go to court in a criminal case, you know what, just go to court, plead guilty, get it over with, and then address the problem after that. Well, you already pled guilty.
How many, 3, 4 maybe, how many times have people come into this office and said, well, I went to court, and I was told just to resolve it by pleading guilty, and that they will get my firearm back later. And then after he pleads guilty and he's waiting around and he calls up, and not you, but he calls up his lawyer and goes, can we get my firearm back? And all of a sudden it's, no, you gave it up.
Okay, here's what Justice Gorsuch said when he was on the 10th Circuit. We read this Saturday night, but it can't be read
enough. Read it again.
United States versus Carlos, C-A-R-L-O-S-S. It's a 2016 case. And remember, Judge Gorsuch was dissenting. So in this case, again, the court found that knock and talk is just fine.
The author of the dissent is now sitting on the Supreme Court of the United States.
I can't think of a better case that I've run into than Joe Kaminsky's case, where consent has been found. And I'm not, maybe it was found because that's the precedent that's been established by the appellate courts. You know, what's a judge to do? Precedent is precedent. You know, but wait, I can't think of a better case than Joe Kaminsky's to say, really, is this what we are defining as consent in the United States now? The United States that was founded on the principle that we don't want soldiers quartered in our homes, that we don't want the government intrusion on our most sacred form of privacy. And now we have a country where judges are ruling that basically when 5 officers show up at your house, unless you're going to be involved in some sort of standoff or just whatever, that it's consent, that Barbara Mattson can sit there smugly at a deposition when she's been on the job for 15 years. I don't know if she was referring to the firearms or her entire time at the state police, almost smugly saying, I've never had to get a warrant. when I go to their house, they always let me in. And I'm thinking, is it because of your personality? You know, really? Do you have that smooth, way of making people feel at ease that they just let you into their house?
Let me add a factor into this. Joe Kaminsky is the same person who, when they got in and started to take his firearms in a voluntary surrender, wrote on the document under protest.
He did.
So he didn't know why they were coming in. They could have been coming in to tell him there was a murderer loose in the neighborhood.
Well, actually at his deposition, he said that one of the Coventry officers who came on that day had been to his house previously because he'd been fishing and some fish were left out, and the neighbor complained that they were starting to smell. He didn't know why they were there. It could have been for any reason. So here's what Judge Gorsuch said. The knock and talk has won a prominent place in today's legal lexicon. The term is used to describe situations in which police officers approach a home, knock at the front door, and seek to engage the homeowner in conversation and win permission to search inside. Because everything happens with the homeowner's consent, the theory goes, a warrant isn't needed. After all, the Fourth Amendment prohibits unreasonable searches, and consensual searches are rarely that. No doubt, for just this reason, law enforcement has found the knock and talk an increasingly attractive investigative tool, and published cases approving knock and talks have grown legion. But in the constant competition between constable and quarry, officers sometimes use knock and talks in ways that test the boundaries of the consent on which they depend. Oh, beautiful.
Okay, now.
Yeah, I can't tell you how good it feels when you read. When you read something like that a judge is actually writing something like that, it makes you think somebody understands what's actually going on in the real world when you read something like that. That's what it is. It's like you have met somebody who understands how it works.
You're not alone.
You're not alone in this world.
You're not alone.
You're not alone.
When Justice Thomas wrote his dissent in my case, I realized that we are not alone. There are people, very, very prominent, intelligent legal scholars and members of the Supreme Court that get it. Okay, now, this case, the Kaminsky case, and here in Connecticut, they tend to they throw these cases out. Now, this is a Second Amendment case. It's a Fourth Amendment case, and it involves inaccurate databases.
And it's also a First Amendment case because when Joe Kaminsky got his pardon, and we sought to get back the 6 remaining guns that the state police still had, Commissioner Shiro, the commissioner of the state police, wrote the pardon board and said, you should reconsider giving him a pardon. And the only reason she did that is because we were trying to get the 6 guns back. If we had given up the 6 guns, she would have never done that. It was a threat. It was a threat of retaliation for trying to get back his 6 guns. And the funny part of it is, the reason why she sought the Pardons Board to reconsider the revocation was supposedly because they had failed to examine that for many years when Joe Kaminsky was applying for his FFL, which you have to do every 3 years to renew, and for his pistol permit, which you have to do every 5 years to renew. He lied on the forms by saying he wasn't a felon. But then it turns out he wasn't a felon. And so we sued Commissioner Shiro for First Amendment retaliation, attempting to deny Joe Kaminsky access to redress in the courts by threatening to attempt to take away his pardon.
And how did that
Joe
complaint?
And did Joe back down? Joe did not back down. He said, "Go ahead, try to take away my pardon. I'm still following this case in court to get my 6 guns back. Really? Is this a man, and this is the man that you say consented to have the police come in and take all his guns?
So, the opposing side...
Former Marine, thank you very much. Combat Marine. Korean War veteran.
Now,
born in 1931.
Now, so let's get this straight. Joe Kaminsky has a lot of legal issues that have a lot of unique and important constitutional aspects to it.
Well, he had the state petition for the return of firearms. He has the federal case.
And the state files whatever motion to dismiss, motion for summary judgments, and all of this crap. And the judge says, yeah, get rid of it. Not important, not an issue, no subject matter jurisdiction, or whatever the hell they say. But then I pick up the fucking paper this morning.
Or in some cases now they're saying, not in Joe Kaminsky's case, but I got to tell you, I do tend to write a little bit of a long complaint, so I'll have to pay attention. But apparently there is a page limit now in filing complaints, and if it's too freaking long, it just gets thrown out for that reason too.
Yeah. Now, and this is probably a very short complaint. But so I pick up the Waterbury Republican today, and they have this briefly column, and I'm going to read it. It comes, and it goes like this. Lawsuit over fall starts today. Well, that means he must have made it past the dismissal, must have made it past summary judgment.
So somebody fell.
Yeah. A trial is set to begin for a $20 million lawsuit against Metro-North Railroad by a man severely injured, now that's okay up to there, when he climbed a Metro-North tower in Connecticut and fell on electrical wires that power the trains. The lawsuit says Omar Conlon, C-O-L-O-N, of New Haven, Cologne, of New Haven, climbed the tower in West Haven in March of 2011 to get a better look at some deer. Conlon, how do you say it?
I think it's Cologne.
Cologne says a shock from nearby Metro-North power lines caused him to fall on a high voltage line. He suffered severe burns on most of his body, and both his legs were amputated.
So let me get this straight.
Let me just, 2 more of the small pairs. Cologne alleges Metro-North didn't post adequate warning signs on the tower. Metro-North officials say Cologne, was trespassing and failed to heed posted warnings. Now, that case is going to trial. But Joe Kaminsky is picking, scraping, scratching, trying to preserve and to be heard in a federal court.
So the average citizen is supposed to know that when 5 police officers come to your door, you can, with no problem, just say, go away, you don't have a warrant, you can't come in. We're expected to know this. We're not expected to be so indoctrinated from, the age of 4 that police officers are good, you should do what police officers say, you should cooperate, be a good citizen. We're supposed to set all that aside and look at things objectively and be able to tell these officers just to go away. And again, not to be afraid either. Not
and
to
I
be
gotta
afraid
tell
of
you
that.
something.
But this gentleman, Mr. Cologne, is not expected to know that he can't climb to the top of a tower owned by Metro North and look at deer around the 3rd rail.
And it has wires. Wires off the tower. It has wires.
Okay, if you say wires one more time, how do you know it has wires?
Because the wires knocked him off.
Oh, that's where he fell. That's where he fell. Okay.
Yeah. Now.
That's crazy.
Now, we know, and you just mentioned, that when you file your complaint, there's a limited number of pages.
Well,
what if you can't tell the story or address all of the issues in that number of pages? Who the fuck are they to say how many pages you can that.
Well, I got to tell you, I mean, I'm going to do a little research on this, but I believe that in these large, complex, like I'd like to know when the government filed their lawsuit against Microsoft back in, what was this, the 90s or whatever, when they were doing that, when Bill Gates was deposed. How many pages was that? In other words, when a lawyer, for instance, like David Boies, you know, you remember David Boies, he represented Al Gore before the Supreme Court when Al Gore was, you know, contesting that he should have been president. David Boies is the attorney that deposed Bill Gates and is deemed largely responsible for that. He represented Napster. He does a lot of these very large lawsuits, right? I guarantee if he were to file a very, very long lawsuit, it would be looked at as almost a sign of his intelligence.
A work of art.
A work of art. You know, it would, simply because of who he is, what he does is looked at in a certain way, where if somebody else does it, simply because of who they are, it's looked at in a certain way. And I got to tell you, that's exactly how it works in the courts. Exactly how it works in the courts. I went to a conference with David Boies, where he was present one time in the Southern District of New York, and that federal court judge was falling all over David Boies like, you know, the second coming had arrived, basically. And you look at that and you're like, what chance does an attorney on the other side have going up against this guy when the judge is just falling all over himself over him? And that's the way it works. That's the way it works. Okay, I want to get to another subject, though. This is my other subject, gun buybacks. And our co-host from our summary judgment show on Saturdays, Matt Tyszkka, kind of got me all passionate about this last night because he emailed me a couple things about the most recent gun buyback in Hartford. And there was one comment by one of the social service agencies or community activists or whatever. You know, these gun buybacks are good because they teach the neighborhood children that guns are dangerous and shouldn't be laying around and they're bad and, you know, whatever you want to say. And I came up with an idea. What else?
Yes, you did.
What else in our cities is very bad and leads to a lot of violence and a lot of trouble?
Drugs.
Drugs. Why isn't the Hartford Police Department having a drug buyback? They could set up substations or temporary tables all over the city and offer to buy drugs from people, no questions asked. Bring us your, you know, kilos, bring us your marijuana, and we will give you, I mean, I think they should at least give market price for it. You know, if the police aren't going to buy the drugs for as much as they can be sold on the streets, then there's no incentive. So the police department's going to have to pay market value.
Not necessarily, because they are buying firearms that have a higher value on the street than they do at a gun buyback.
Are they?
Yes. A handgun, and they give you a $50 food card.
Well, maybe it's, okay, so maybe it's less trouble to sell drugs and guns to the police than to sell them on the street.
Stick with the basic premise that if you want them off the street, buy them off the street. And, you know, give a $50 gift card and say to some teenager, if your father has 2.2 pounds of cocaine sitting around the house,
right?
You bring it to us and we'll give you $50. And you can go home and tell your father, hey, Dad, I just got rid of your 2.2 pounds of cocaine and look what I got. I can go down to the candy store and get something.
No, and you can take it further than that, because if you really want to encourage getting dangerous things off the streets, I mean, there's no questions asked about guns, right? So conceivably, if I want to turn in a gun to the Hartford Police Department, I could just take it from somebody else, go turn it in and get some money for it. So why not do the same thing with drugs? Encourage people in the cities to start stealing drugs from each other and taking them to the Hartford Police Department and getting money for it, right?
Yeah,
this will solve the problem of drugs.
If one drug dealer can steal the other drug dealer's, you know, his competitors' drugs and turn them into the police department, he could put his, you know, then you'd have half as many people selling drugs.
But isn't the principle exactly the same? Guns are dangerous. Bring them to us. We'll buy them to get them off the street, and this is going to sell the gun problem, right? Now listen, drugs are dangerous. Bring them to us. We'll buy them, and that'll solve the drug problem. We have found We have found, after all these years, after a 50-year drug war in the United States, that the solution is for police departments all over the country to start buying drugs.
So my turn. So Matt Tyszkka brings up the gun buyback. You send an email to him suggesting a drug buyback.
It popped in my head.
And then he comes back suggesting, why don't we do it with prostitutes?
Oh, did he?
Oh, yeah. Now, now listen to me.
Let's not go into that.
No. Listen to me. What if...
How would that work?
Well, you say like this. Instead of prostituting yourself today, come in and just say, I won't prostitute myself today, and give them a $50 gift card.
I love it. We could probably solve a lot of... Instead of burglarizing somebody's home, come here, tell us what you would have taken, and we'll give you a gift card, depending on the value of what you anticipate you would have taken.
If you're a burglar that burgles or shoplifts regularly, just go to your neighborhood police substation and say, I'm a burglar and a shoplifter, and I'd like a gift card so that I don't have to do that today. It's stupid. It's stupid.
Okay, so I wanted to bring that up because and by the way, that idea is copyrighted. That is my idea. When police departments start doing it, I want to get credit for it, and I want to be some sort of director or
paid director.
A paid director for that. That's right. Do not take my idea and just use it without calling me first Chief Rovella. Okay.
Okay. Now.
We got 5 minutes.
Well, we don't have 5 minutes, and I'll tell you why we
3
don't.
minutes.
And I'll tell you why we don't have 3 minutes. Because this is the
okay. Here's the quote. Here's the quote from the gun buyback article that Matt Tyszkka sent me from a community activist. Hartford communities that care. We showed them that these are the weapons that are affecting people's lives, and that if they see them, to tell someone right away. It was a powerful teaching moment, and I think it really drove the point home for them. Substitute that for drugs, right? We showed them that drugs are affecting people's lives, and that if they see them, to tell someone right away and turn them in,
I think we ought to put drugs on every corner in Hartford laced with
except
fentanyl.
Wait, the argument falls apart because wait a second, guns in and of themselves are not illegal. They can be used for self-defense. They have many positive purposes. Whereas heroin and other drugs on the streets are, just simply because of what they are, illegal. And they have no positive purpose whatsoever. So really, if you think about it, there's more of a reason to have a drug buyback than a gun buyback.
Wrap it up.
Okay, so we will see you tomorrow, Tuesday, August. I don't even know what the date is.
Whatever number it's going to be.
Look, today's August 7th, so we'll see you tomorrow.
Well, now it says the 7th, but Dan tells me it's the 8th.
No.
It's August is 08. Okay, I got you.
Okay, see you tomorrow.
Thank you.